Welcome to Lyme Time. I'm Allie from the PICC. We are all more than Lyme disease and chronic illness, and together we stand with you to overcome and rise. I'll bring you closer to the experts in cutting-edge treatments and even a few unexpected ways of healing. I'll ask the questions you want answers to regarding Lyme disease and successful ways of getting you closer to 100%. We are in this together and will not be defined by Lyme. Emily Levy is an award-winning social impact entrepreneur, disability advocate, and public speaker. She co-founded MightyWell based on her experience as a patient living with Lyme disease, autoimmune conditions, and vascular access devices. She's been honored by world-class entrepreneurial programs, including the Cartier Women's Initiative Awards, Morgan Stanley Multicultural Innovation Lab, and Mass Challenge, and is currently the youngest member of Babson College's Hall of Fame as a rising star. And after realizing that her body can heal itself with the right tools, Emily shares her story of thriving mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually while living with chronic illness. And I just want to welcome Emily, you to the show. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really a big fan of the content you're putting out there. And I wish it's something that I had available to me at the beginning of my journey.
Thank you. Thank you for that. It means a lot coming from you because I've been a long admirer of your work. My gosh, if you just go to my homepage at thetickchicks.com, we have a direct link to all your wonderful devices and accessories and things like that. We're going to get to that in a minute, but I first wanted to just start with your own personal story. I mean, you could have chosen many, many different things to do with your life, and I want to hear just sort of your journey to get you here.
Thank you. My journey is probably very similar to many of your listeners. I was never really a healthy kid, and we didn't know why. It was a lot of time spent going from doctor to doctor and never truly feeling listened to or heard. I remember my mom found a tick in my hair that was engorged, probably when I was like 5 or 6, after one summer I spent at farm camp. And then when I was about 12 or 13, I contracted mono, which has turned into chronic Epstein-Barr or stage 4 Epstein-Barr virus. And I really consider my journey of being like chronically ill starting at the age of 12, with at the time the doctors just said it was the worst case of mono they ever saw. They brought in students to study me. It was like the first time I felt like I constantly talk about like feeling like a name on a chart instead of a patient and a person living with these illnesses. And then once I got into high school, I started to develop neurological symptoms. My face would twitch, my leg would go numb. But I was really active. I played sports. I got good grades, and eventually got into my dream school, Babson College, where I started MightyWell. But during my time as a student there, I would notice like zoning out and being so tired that I would sleep through my classes and just not being able to, quote unquote, keep up with my peers. And finally, that led to me getting tested for tick-borne illnesses and finding out that not only I had Lyme, but it had become neurological and there were other co-infections. And, we're still figuring out, different viruses and parasites that have wreaked havoc on my life. And in the end, I really used IV therapy to get me back to some sort of normalcy. And I just like to tell my story because I felt so alone and confused and depressed during my early journey, that if I can prevent someone from feeling that way in the future, that's why I keep going.
And so I imagine when you were a little girl and then in high school and then going off to Babson, that you might have envisioned different things for yourself, even though Babson is, I think, famous for its entrepreneurial program. But did you see yourself doing this?
That's a great question. I went to that school knowing that I wanted to be in business and probably have a business at some point in my life. But I almost joked that it was out of necessity that I became an entrepreneur. I was supposed to go work for a real estate tech startup in New York City after I graduated. And I just kind of sat with myself and I was like, there's no way I can run around New York City, with numb legs and being this tired. Being an entrepreneur, while it may be even more hours you work, it was at my own pace. So I do tend to encourage people who are chronically ill or living with disability to become entrepreneurs because it's that much more flexible of a lifestyle.
Right. And you can do it sometimes from the comfort of your own home, which is
from your bed.
Big deal for our community.
Yeah, do it from bed.
And when you mentioned you had IV therapy, so did you in fact have a PICC line when you were going through treatment? And what kind of treatment did you go through? I mean, everybody's different, but I always like to hear.
It's really been an evolution. It's been about 8 years of trying different IV therapies. I first got a PICC after I couldn't keep down oral medication, about 6 months into first treating tick-borne illnesses. And part of me thought like, oh, if I get this PICC, I do 6 months of IV therapy, I'm better, right?
Yeah.
And I had a really good about year after that first round of IV antibiotics, and that is around the time I started working on MightyWell. And unfortunately, after I graduated, so about 2 years later, I started to have more neurological symptoms, just slow processing, kind of like disorienting at times, having out-of-body experiences. So I was like, oh, having a PICC and IV antibiotics the first time really helped me. I'm going to do it again. And this time we treated more aggressively, and I had the PICC in for 18 months, which is a really long time.
Yeah.
And then started to have gut health issues. And I was like, okay, like at what point am I done? So I had gotten that PICC out, did better, functioning, running a startup, like I was able to do it. But I was never quote unquote better. And this past year and a half has been really difficult for me health-wise, most likely dealing with long COVID. I got sick in February of 2020 when I was living in Manhattan, and then just kind of haven't been quite the same since. So I went back to IV therapy, and I've been focusing on ozone and doing holistic IVs like high-dose vitamin C, Myers cocktail, more of the holistic therapies where I'm not getting these massive side effects. I'll get a herx, but I'm not also having gut health being destroyed.
It's quite a maze now, throwing in the current pandemic. And I think we've all been, first of all, scared to go down that road again. I mean, even if I feel okay, I could feel that maybe a flare could come on if I don't get on top of something right now. That sets off a whole panic in and of itself. Yes. So, and then you throw COVID into the situation, which we don't know a lot about. And all of a sudden, we as warriors, we find out, we feel as though we might be starting at ground zero. And that's just terrifying for so many people. And going back to IV therapy or PICC lines or things like that. The reason I'm talking a lot about PICC lines is because, you had enough foresight, and maybe you experienced a weakness in the system in terms of, how can you not look, or how can you be made more comfortable both visually and physically while you're going through treatment? And you were able to launch your own company or co-found it, and it's called MightyWell, MightyWell, WELL.com. And let me just tell our listeners out there, this is if you are going through any sort of long-term medical condition, this is a lifesaver. And it actually makes you feel a little bit normal when you're going through it. But can you tell us about your PICC line covers? For instance, let's just start there.
Yes. Oh my God. This is kind of what started it all. Exactly that. I was discharged from the hospital with a PICC, was really given no information about how to take care of it, keep it clean, prevent it from pulling, infection. And I was just given this gauze, from the hospital that they told me would secure, the tubing. And at the same time, I was still going to college classes. I was traveling quite a bit and had my line pulled multiple times, dislodged, skin irritation. And I was just like, there has to be a better way. And I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My family owned a surf shop for most of my childhood. So I started learning about all these fabrics that athletes were using. And I was like, hey, like patients are kind of like athletes in our own way, right? You got to rest, recover, train your body. So we used that fabric, sportswear fabric technology to reinvent how a patient could live with long-term IV therapy. And we've since gotten FDA registration. We sell the PICC Perfect at many hospital and outpatient clinic locations. But my favorite part is just how people say, this device helps me to secure my line. It allows me to go grocery shopping, pick up my kids, play with my dog at the park. So that was our first product, and we've expanded to a whole line of medical devices and wearables and accessories to help patients have dignity and confidence while they're going through treatment.
One thing I love about your particular line is the beautiful colors. I'm sure you get that comment a lot. Maybe you don't, but I mean, the colors are just so great. And I first had experience with your products during COVID because we were all searching out for the perfect mask. And I definitely found the perfect mask with MightyWell. But one thing I loved, aside from the functionality, the comfort, it didn't pull on my ears. It kept me feeling very, very safe, which, with a lot of the paper masks, I felt there was a lot of ventilation, but yours felt very, very, very good against my face. But also, the colors are beautiful to look at. And I think that's important. Certainly, if you are going to be wearing or using a PICC line for, the better part of a year or even beyond that, like you said, just being able to just sort of tuck it away and have it be comfortable against your clothing and stretch with you, move with you, and not really get in the way of anything else. And I understand you even have a new product that goes with the PICC lines for, in the shower and is waterproof. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. One of the biggest challenges when living with vascular access is you can't get the site wet. So we partnered with a shower sleeve company called Limbo, where patients can get the PICC Perfect and the shower sleeve in one bundle at a discounted price. And we're actually growing the company to be able to sell and distribute other medical supplies as well. So you'll see within the next year, we're working on helping patients to not only have, the wearable medical devices like our infusion backpack, the MightyPack, or our masks, but how can we help patients to find, source, and deliver best-in-class medical supplies? So big things coming for us, and it all comes back to my horrible experiences navigating the US healthcare system and just wanting to feel like myself, look like myself, and be treated with respect.
Yeah, and feel a little bit as close to normal as you possibly can, I'm sure. I also love the apparel that you have, Undefeated. I mean, it's hats, it's t-shirts, it's comfort wear, it's even a beanie. You have a great beanie there. Because as you know, when you go in for a 3-hour treatment to a cold hospital setting, it's not fun. It's not warm and cozy. You already feel lousy. So just having some comfort items, and I even noticed that you have a wrap that you can cozy up in, and just, just to make the experience a little bit more pleasant, so to speak. Can you tell
I'm
us?
glad you get it.
Oh man. I mean, I was in the car in traffic for, I don't know, a couple of hours, and my son was with me, and I said, you know what we need to do? We need to make a playlist for when people are in treatment. And we did. We put it together, and it's really, it made me so happy. We got going and we just started on a roll, and he has great taste in music, and it's all just really powerful, empowering, happy, just great energy to have. Because as you know, when we're going through IV treatment, to be able to visualize, I mean, this is taking it a step further, but really being able to visualize and welcome the process that's happening to you so that you can get through to the other side. I think it's so easy to just say, I don't want to do it today. My veins are tired. My body's tired. I can't do it. And we've all certainly been there before, but this is exciting that you have so many things to choose from on the website, and also you're now being able to reach out to corporations and hopefully get this thing really going for the mass population. Can you tell me a little bit about? I know you have an announcement with regarding the ultimate guide to PICC. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that? I think our listeners want to know.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I definitely want to share that playlist with our community as well. And one, I also need it for ozone therapy next week.
Yes, you do. It's good. It's really good. So I'll get it to you.
Thank you. So in terms of our ultimate guide to PICC, we wrote a guidebook with the Association for Vascular Access. They set all the guidelines for getting any kind of IV therapy in the US and train those type of specialty nurses. So this is a patient-focused guide, everything from when you're getting your PICC inserted, what you want to know before surgery, how to maintain the line, how to travel, how to go to the beach. I just felt like I was left in the dark. So we wanted to provide a guide that patients can come back to, whether they're on their own or while they're at the IV center, to just educate themselves. Because once you educate yourself, you can advocate better for your needs. And a big thing for me was the medical supplies that was being offered was just not the best products for my treatment needs. So we're really excited that we launched this with such a prestigious nursing organization, and the ultimate guide to PICC is really to help anyone, family member or patient or healthcare professional, to better understand how they can live with this medical device.
I think it's important to note, even though we don't like to talk about it, I think it's just reality. I mean, I just met the third person yesterday who went into sepsis because of the PICC line, and it's real and it happens, and not every hospital or doctor, I mean, by the time you're in that state, you're in the ER, and so I think, and it doesn't really, you would be able to tell us more, but I feel as though it's not really, even though it's a cleanliness thing, it's like, I feel like it would be so easy to slip into that, because the people I know that have gotten it are really, I mean, obviously they're on it. They were taking care of themselves, doing what they thought was right. Do you have any suggestions for people with regard to sepsis?
Yes. Sepsis is obviously super scary. Fortunately, I've never had it. I've also met so many people who take amazing care of their lines, and it just happens. So unfortunately, we've typically seen within the MightyWell community that people have reported that it will often be hospital inquired or IV center inquired. And you can take the best care in the world of your own line. And I encourage people to have agency over their medical devices. But if you're going into an infusion clinic, or, that nurse is changing your bandage and they're not following best hygiene practices, quite often because they're not even educated on, the latest science, research, and products, this very well could happen and is very serious and very scary. And that's part of the reason we did write the ultimate guide to PICCs, not only for patients, but for your average nurse to better understand the device. Because we quite often see that it's within the clinics, it's within the home care. It's when someone else is touching it that's not you, who doesn't have the same hygiene standards or knowledge, that unfortunately that could happen.
That's very interesting to know. Thank you for letting us know about that. I think an important thing to realize is that when you get Lyme disease or another chronic illness, you are all of a sudden sort of thrust into this medical world, and you're sent home with a PICC line or something else, and you're really expected to be your own nurse. I mean, I had to have my husband giving me shots because I was so scared to give myself my own shots. And then I finally, after about 6 months, I told myself I can do this, but I mean, that is not in my comfort zone whatsoever. And that's not even as high. It's not even as detailed as a PICC line. But I know that it's just scary for some people, but yet it's kind of thrust upon us as a community.
I felt the exact same way. At this point, I'm like a pro at giving myself shots, but it took a while to be like, okay, I'm going to do this. Yep. Okay. This is going to make me better. So it's not easy. And one of the catalysts for starting MightyWell was with my first PICC. I was 20 years old, in college, and, living in a dorm room, trying to figure out how to manage this. And, I was paying out of pocket as well for that home care nursing, paying out of pocket for the IV antibiotics. It was just all so overwhelming. After having 2 PICCs, I also had a implanted port for 4 years. So I eventually had to become okay with accessing my own port. But all of this is exactly why we're warriors, why I think it's such a unique type of person to be in this community, because we're not gonna stand back and let this just happen to us. Unfortunately, you really have to become your own advocate when it comes to tick-borne illnesses and chronic illness or living with medical devices. So it's been traumatizing, to say the least, but I'm also really proud of myself, that I can take care of myself. My husband can de-access a port. It's not life skills I ever thought I would have.
Can you tell me about what the process was in developing the SelfCare Case?
Yes, absolutely. So the SelfCare Case is our new organizer for medications, supplements, EpiPens, inhalers. You want to put your headphones in it, hand sanitizer. It's a great little carry-all. And this came out of my own need, again, of taking, say, 30 different pills and supplements and needing to carry around syringes, saline, heparin, alcohol wipes, and just feeling like it was thrown all over my purse. So we just created this really innovative little organizer that utilizes a binder ring system, where you can have all of your supplements organized. So super excited about that new launch, and we have a few new colors coming out this summer.
That's great. That's great. And you mentioned do you still have the backpack available?
Yes. So the Mighty Pack is our original IV backpack that also fits over a wheelchair. This product sold out, and we have the newest version, which is called the Fluid Motion Backpack, which is FSA and HSA eligible. All of our products are, actually. This will be coming out this summer. It's a beautiful next evolution of the product. It fits even larger IV bags in it, and it was especially designed for people doing TPN or tube feeding.
And what about the SelfCare notepads? I'd like to learn more about that.
Yeah. So within the new self-care case, we created little notepads. So I don't know if anyone else suffers from brain fog, but I
No,
can
not at all.
remember like, oh, did I take my, vitamin C tablet this morning? Yes or no? Or, oh, what was my blood sugar? What was my temperature? So these cute little uplifting pads, just to help you manage your brain fog as you take all of your different medical supplements.
You just have it all in one great location. And I just want to encourage everyone out there to take a look at your website, because it's important that we all, like you said, just have the support that you provide, and actually seeing normal people doing this, and that it's going to be okay, and sort of giving you that confidence to go into a treatment is huge. It really is huge.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. Anyway, I could go on and on about the website. I really could. I just want to know sort of last thoughts and things that you would like people to know that are out there that are maybe just beginning their journey, or just having some discomfort, or not okay with taking that level of support to, I would think it would be a big thing if you're in a wheelchair to then go ahead and get the backpack and know that it's going to go over your wheelchair and all that. It's just such a decision of this is happening and acceptance. And so can you talk a little bit about that, and just talk to our listeners and tell them what maybe you think they would like to hear at this moment?
Thank you so much. I myself was using a cane last year. My neuropathy in my legs got pretty unmanageable. So I really had to work on my identity with chronic illness. For so long, I felt like, especially when I was in college, I was like Emily with the girl with the sock on her arm. Because before the PICC Perfect, I literally wore a cutoff sock on my arm to protect my device, which is crazy. So, it was like Emily with Lyme disease. Oh, Emily, oh, she's sick, and some of these are narratives I played into and perpetuated for sure. But I just had to take a step back and be like, who am I without tick-borne illness and chronic illness and medical devices? And once I started to uncouple, Emily in who my soul is versus Emily in the sick body, I was really able to work on coming home to myself. And I've certainly struggled on days with treatment, still currently, but at the same time, I'm able to see it's a moment and it's not who I am. So that's what I'd really like to impart upon your listeners in our community is we are so much more than being chronically ill. We are people who, have value and have meaning in this world. And by supporting each other, we like to say at MightyWell, we're friends in the fight.
We are. It's an instant connection. I always say, how is it that total strangers on these social media platforms, how can we go to such a deep level instantly? And yet I cannot really do that with a bunch of my friends that I've had for a lifetime. And it is that community, and we're all here for each other. And I love what you're doing. I support you. I'd like you to be able to tell our listeners where we can find you, where we can, if somebody wanted to get an ultimate guide to PICC, where they could access that, and anything else you'd like to share.
Thank you. So you can find us at MightyWell.com. You can also find us through your website on the PICC. You have a great discount code and affiliate link. We're also on Amazon, unfortunately. We are offering the Ultimate Guide to PICCs on our website. We have different hubs for different medical devices. So this is a free download. Just pop in your email and it'll be delivered right to your inbox. We're working on creating hard copies. So when you order a PICC Perfect or a shower sleeve, this will come with your order. Education is so important to us because we know it empowers patients. So you can find not only our great products at MightyWell.com, but some awesome education about living with chronic illness and medical devices.
Well, thank you so much. I'm sure people will be signing up for that and looking and exploring. And again, she mentioned a discount code at thetickchicks.com, which is always fun to get a discount. Emily, I'm so grateful for your time today and your generous spirit and for all that you do for our community. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
We'll talk soon.